So I'm so excited to have director Julie Langsam here with us today from Garden State. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So to kick things off, I first just want to ask, tell us about how Garden State came together.
I'm an artist. I'm trained as a painter and a photographer. And for many years, I've been thinking about film as another way of telling a story. And during COVID, when everybody was locked down, I had this idea that I wanted to make a film. My stepmother had recently died. She died in 2019, and she was a documentary filmmaker. And before her death, we talked about me making a film, and she was really supportive. And she left me a little bit of money to do that. So this is kind of an homage to her, Joan Keel Productions. That was her company. The film that I had wanted to make, this big feature film about the United States, it was not possible to do under lockdown. But what I realized that I could do is I could make a film about my home and my state. And the more I thought about it, I came to New Jersey as a resident in 2009 when I started teaching at Rutgers University. And I grew up in Queens. And for many years in the 60s, my family would make the trip to Princeton, New Jersey to visit our grandfather. This is the pre-EPA. So the trip through the turnpike and through that area, that industrial area of New Jersey, Linden, Carteret, all of that, it was just unbearable. The stench of rotten eggs would waft over you for 20 minutes. I mean, we would be gagging as kids in the back. It didn't matter if the windows were open or closed, or it was just horrible. And when I came back to New Jersey and I drove that same route, it was really astonishing to me how much had changed, but also how much sort of hadn't really changed. I mean, the smell was no longer there. So things were better. But I kept driving that route up and down the turnpike, for years. And finally, I was like, I really feel like I need to make some kind of artwork about this state. I mean, we're the densest state in the Union. The most people live here per square mile of any part of the United States. We have an amazingly large amount of toxic waste in our state. The quantity of Superfund sites is just unbelievable. And yet it's a beautiful state. And we have beaches and we have pine forests and we have, the dichotomy was something that really interested me. And with what's happening, environmentally and politically in this country and all over the world right now, I mean, I just felt like I wanted to show what it looked like to me, and this juxtaposition of the kind of industry and progress, things that we call progress, and beauty of nature, and what we potentially are going to lose. We have a lot to lose. So that's sort of what I wanted to show in the film in a really kind of, not in a heavy-handed way. There's obviously no narration. So
there's no narration, but you have incredible sound design by Kevin T. Allen. And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit more about the choices with this very eerie, almost mysterious, unsettling score, mixing with these human interactive spaces, as well as just the terrain, and creating this uneasy feeling. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about those choices.
First of all, Kevin T. Allen is an amazing sound person. He was terrific to work with. He's a colleague at Rutgers. The sound is all sourced organically from the shooting that we took. So he basically took whatever the soundtrack was that was recorded at each location and kind of manipulated it, heightened certain things, played down certain things, would carry a sound over from one shot into the next. Sometimes it would be a sharp break. Sometimes it would be more gradual. I think he totally nailed it. The sound is so important in the film, and he did just an amazing job.
I agree. It definitely unsettled me in the best way. As you mentioned, you're an artist who has been nationally exhibited in a number of places, and I'm curious how your other projects have influenced and compared to Garden State, your film.
I think my whole practice for the last 20 years has influenced this film. And in a strange way, I feel like this film is sort of a culmination of all of those years. In the mid-90s, I started to work with the landscape as a metaphor, as an image, and as a site for me to think about things that had to do with progress in terms of modernism. I was very interested in architecture and modernism. Modernists sort of believe that there could be something better, that we can design a better world, that we can live in a better world, that it is under our, power to create a space for how we can be better as humans. And those ideals have always sort of crashed into the reality of that, which is that modernism has not lived up to that sort of potential. Yet it's still this sort of looming idea and an ideal that I still believe in. So for all of these years, I've been sort of negotiating that sort of desire with the reality. I did it by painting these landscapes with buildings of visionary architects in them. The landscapes are totally bereft of any human, interaction. The planet could have been destroyed, and the only thing that would be left would be these monuments, like museums and beautiful homes designed by, star architects. And sort of like I imagine, the lone left person in the planet, like navigating this landscape with all of these sort of monuments that we've left. What I was doing in painting 20 years ago, I feel like I'm doing in this film. And for me, that's really special because I like this idea that I have these feelings about the land, about space, about beauty, about art, about progress. But as you know, the political climate has just gotten so much more charged. I just felt like I had to be a little more direct. I just felt like I just wanted to address the land specifically. And for me, these structures like opening scene, we buy gold. For me, it sets the tone for this. It's the capitalist agenda that's kind of doing all of this.
Even though you don't have a narrator, I do feel like it is pretty direct. Like in a way is kind of speaking to this ideology that like you're talking about, to let the land speak for itself. And I think that really comes through. And I'm curious, is there a moment in this film when you were putting it all together, a landscape, a space, etc., that particularly spoke to you or surprised you that you didn't expect to capture, but you did?
There are a lot of shots that just like found me. I mean, that I just love. Like there's the We Buy Gold, I thought was really interesting. There's a shot of these big tanks in Newark and there's birds and the birds fly off just as we catch that shot. Like that was just perfect. And then there's a couple of shots in Atlantic City where, that gate comes out and the windmills are, just like I couldn't have asked for better, like a better sunset, a better sky. We're filming from 6 a.m. until dark. And so we're just traveling around in the car and just trying to find places that I want to film. Some other shots that were really special, like the second to last shot of the moon. And we shot that and there was somebody playing basketball while we were shooting. And that ball, that sound of the ball, like talking with Kevin about having that ball sort of echoing the form of the moon, just sort of sitting there in the sky. Things like that really were just beautiful moments that just, I don't know. And one thing I wanted to tell you, we got in trouble a couple of times. That big dump scene with the big pile of trash, we were told so many times that we were not allowed to film. We couldn't be anywhere. We couldn't stand there. We couldn't film. And it was kind of interesting.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question. If you got any pushback from anyone trying to film New Jersey in all of its glory and not glory.
I mean, getting close to the port of New Jersey, which is where that dump is. Yeah, people don't want you to be there. There's guards. They don't want you filming. Luckily, New Jersey is so dense that like there's pretty much roads where you can stand that are public where they can't tell you to leave. That's sort of how we were able to do it. Just knowing that was kind of important because otherwise we would have been frightened off and a bunch of those shots we wouldn't have been able to get. Yeah, we've had incidents. Nothing dangerous, except once I was followed. I think it was I was trying to film a power plant and I was followed on the highway. They were taking my photograph. They were taking my picture. They took my license plate. You have to worry about terrorism, I suppose.
In any of the areas, did you notice any sort of biodiversity issues?
Well, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but, just as a kid, we would catch fireflies. There are no fireflies. There are no fireflies because of pesticides. I mean, we're just so overburdening our bodies, the body of the planet, with so many chemicals. It makes me angry. I don't know what to do about it other than to, show what I see. That when I'm driving on the turnpike and I see that massive factory belching steam, but it also happens to be sunset, I'm kind of in awe. It's kind of sublime. This idea of the sublime is this sort of the horror and the beauty sort of coming together. If you see these factories, I mean, they're sort of amazing. They're amazing feats of engineering, of somebody's brain, of ways to create things that we may need or may not need or may be convinced that we need. Can we take all of this like brain power and focus it somewhere else? But we don't. But yet that vision can still be really powerful. So for me, seeing that factory against the sunset and seeing the juxtaposition of the beauty and the sort of horror is the location of where I feel like my voice is.
Julie, what have you learned about yourself through the making of your film?
Coming into this is my very first film. I've never made a film before. I just had this idea that I wanted to show the landscape in sort of live time. I work with images. So for me, these are images that are sort of stitched together. And I learned how to trust myself and to listen to my own instincts and to just sort of go with it. I've also learned that I've always been this way, but it sort of reinforced my understanding that the world around me and what happens to it has always been really important to me. I learned that I can use my voice and my eye as an artist to maybe highlight some of the issues at large that I feel are important. And at the same time, we live in a world that is beautiful. For me, all of it is beautiful. It's not like the beaches and the mountains are the beauty and the factories are ugly. For me, like I have to look at them together. I can't see them separately. I've learned how to be more direct and less, discursive, maybe.